It's not the America that I knew or that I grew up in. It's just beyond the pale. And it's also very foolish because this is given Trump, as if he needed it, his own Vietnam. This is not going to end well for any of those clowns that peered up there behind Trump and Trump himself. So I think it's a blessing in a sense that Venezuela is so far away from Russia or from China. Each have certain equities there, but it's not their core interest. And so I don't expect this to escalate into anything approaching a nuclear war. And you have to thank people like Putin and Xi for being perspicacious enough to realize that and to make clear that they're willing to work with the United States as long as their own core interests are not threatened. And it looks like Putin, or not Putin, but Trump has some sense of when to stop. We'll see about that. Now, the difference with Trump, of course, is that he was able to talk. Okay, he was able to talk with the Russians, talk with Putin maybe 9 times or so. So that's different, and they have different channels now by which they communicate. That's a fail-safe mechanism, and as I say, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how Trump reacts now. Those parts from the drones that were fired toward Valdai, they're in Washington now. They're being looked at. And if I were Putin, I would say, well, okay, I know what's in those, in that telemetry and in those directional things. Now, let's see if Trump is completely captive to the people in CIA. Let's see if the CIA is still shaping the evidence to suit the policy, or let's see, and miracles happen, whether Trump will get the real scoop on this and kind of hold back and stop vacillating as to whether this was aimed at Putin's residence or it was not. John Ratcliffe is running things now in the intelligence community. Where's Tulsi? It's a where's Waldo sort of thing. Where is Tulsi Gabbard, a voice of sanity? She's been out of the picture. So whether Ratcliffe will trim the evidence around the policy is an open question. Whether Trump will be smart enough to realize that he's being had again by the intelligence community, or whether he just can't rein in the intelligence community. Well, if I'm in Moscow, I'm Putin, and I'm saying, which is worse? That the president wants to have a decent relationship with us, as he repeatedly says, as is in his new strategy guidance, or can he not? Is he unable to do this because of the deep state? Now, if I were Putin, I would look on and I would say, well, no, wait a second. He knows what happened to him last time. He knows that James Comey, for God's sake, and John Brennan mounted the equivalent of a coup against him. Now, what's happened to them? Wow, Trump's been in office now for a whole year. Comey was indicted. Oh, yeah. Trump was so inept that he picked some pretty girl to be the attorney, and she screwed up. And so Comey's going to walk. What'll happen to John Brennan? Well, this time it'll be a blonde, give me a break. So if I'm Putin, I'm saying this guy is incompetent. He's a little delusional. He's a lot narcissistic. We better keep handling him with kid gloves. You see, my overarching interest here is whether there be a nuclear war.
Yeah. Here's
if you interpret what Putin has said, you have to conclude that he is very, very interested in preventing a nuclear war. He's not going to do anything at all perpetrate it, but he'll do everything he can to deter it. And that might include the use of an Oreshnik or two on Ukraine within the next few weeks. Press are just as guilty of disregarding the Constitution.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the point to make.
Absolutely.
With respect to negotiations, look, all bets are off. I mean, how are the people in the Kremlin going to persuade Putin to appear amicable or appear able to deal with this fellow who's gone a little bit crazier than he usually is. So I see the negotiations themselves as ending, at least for the nonce. Now, the big question, of course, is will there be a nuclear confrontation? And I think, you can look at the history of all this. You can see what the U.S. did or what U.S. Clients did with respect to strategic bombers, with respect to other things, and now with respect to the attack on Valdai. The Russian response has been, look, let's remember, number one, we don't want a nuclear war. Yeah, we may be upset, we may be outraged, but look, we got the thing going here in Ukraine. Nobody's going to win this. This is our territory. Let's focus on this and just make sure that Trump knows through our other channels that we're serious about this. And as I said before, I think this might be reinforced by an Oreshnik or two on Ukrainian targets, probably those where we have NATO personnel identified. I think that's coming quite soon because Putin does have to demonstrate to the naysayers here that he is not a paper tiger. He's going to go after the people who he thinks are responsible for this. Now, the NATO technology that was in those drones, maybe it's hard to pin that on the United States itself, but there is technology from NATO. So the Russians can say, well, all right, you better stop that. And Mr. Trump, to show your goodwill, will you finally end your intelligence support for these people? And the question is, whether they can be pinned to the technology that is now available in Washington. It was quite a dramatic scene where the head of the military intelligence in Russia officially gave the technology to our army attaché there in Moscow. It's in Washington now. This will be a big earnest of whether Trump has been dragged along by the likes of Rubio and will continue to tell these lies that Putin is lying. I'll make this observation. The media is the fly in the ointment, okay? Now, why do I say that? I wrote a tweet, as soon as this went down, and I said, Putin is more credible than the CIA, and certainly more credible than those who have won Pulitzer Prizes for the New York Times. Oh, I got 50,000 looks. That's a majority of my lookers. Okay, what they say? How McGovern? How can you say that? How can? So, the U.S. again, people have been pretty much indoctrinated into think Putin is the wrong guy. It's a terrible guy. And as Putin looks on at this, he says, "Look, I remember this from your first term, Mr. Trump. What are you going to do about these guys? You got the goods on them." And Trump said, "Oh, well, I have a pretty lawyer. And well, she screwed up on Comey. Comey's going to walk. Brennan, I don't know if we'll ever get Brennan." I mean, Putin looks at Trump as being very weak and just kind of narcissistic, throwing his weight around in the neighborhood, the only neighborhood where he can get away with it without worrying about Russia or China intervening militarily. Well, that the U.S. and Israel both know from the last time around, was it April, that Iran can destroy Israel, that they have the kind of hypersonic missiles that can destroy the rest of Israel. They've demonstrated they can do that, and there is no defense against them. Okay, so if I'm plotting this strike, I got to realize that Israel might be obliterated, to use a term that Trump uses. So, is this not enough to give them pause? I suggest that reason would dictate, yeah, they wouldn't want to result in having Israel obliterated. So all this talk, I think it has to be taken note of, but I'm still skeptical. I still think that reason will prevail. And this time around, if Iran is attacked, Israel will be no more.